On today's podcast, we are joined by Chris King, who is the owner of Unique Capture. Chris tells us about how his sheer determination to better himself has resulted in a career, a business, and a reputation built on passion. Also, how an understanding of sales and marketing have played a crucial role in his success. So, welcome to everybody at home, everyone who's listening from iPad and wherever. We're really happy to have you back with us for another episode of Beyond the Mojo. We've got our special guest, Chris King, who's joining us from Unique Capture today. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, John.
I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Let us kick straight off with the podcast. So, we typically have an icebreaker question just to get everybody into the mood and the swing of things. So, question for you today. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Oh, do you know what? That's a really easy one.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's potatoes.
Really?
Absolutely potatoes. I'll give you what I would eat and what I wouldn't eat. So potatoes, because I just love chips and jacket potatoes, and you can have them as crisps and dauphinoise. There is so many different kind of potatoes. John, you didn't ask me this question in advance, but it's probably the only one you'll get a straightforward answer out of before.
Don't let your PT hear.
However, I will tell you one other thing is that it would definitely not be peas, because I was at one of my jobs, and you'll probably hear a few of them, was as a pea taster for Birdseye. So one of my hidden secrets is I once was a pea taster for Birdseye, and I had to check them for colour, taste, texture. But the biggest thing was I'm actually red-green colourblind, so I couldn't even tell whether they were the right shade of green to go into Marks and Spencer's or not.
Come out. We won't tell your old employers.
Pea taster for Birdseye.
I love it. That's amazing.
Potatoes is the answer.
Excellent. All right, so let's tell the listeners just a little bit more about yourself. Who are you, and kind of tell us about your life, your background.
Oh, wow. So I'm 49 now, approaching the big 50. When did that happen? I look around at the team of people that work with me, and I go, oh my gosh, I'm now the oldest in the room as opposed to being the youngest. Although fortunately I don't feel that old, so that's good. I'm the owner of two photography businesses. One that is dedicated to e-commerce and Amazon type sellers, and that's we work with customers all around the world. And the second is Unique Capture, which is here in Milton Keynes, and we work with creative agencies and brands and create videos and photography and CGI and basically wow imagery to help them convert more browsers into buyers. Amazing.
And so tell us, how would your kids describe you?
My son right now would say I was a tyrant. It's his birthday actually today.
Is it? Oh my gosh! And you're here?
And I'm here. Yes.
Oh, no.
Sorry, Alfie. Do you know he's 15? So he turned 15 today, and he's on the autism spectrum. So he's amazing, but he's amazing at coding. So he goes to school at the Silverstone Academy on the racetrack, so he is the most lucky lad going, because he gets to look out the window and see all the cars going past.
Amazing.
And it's a free school, but it allows him to focus on what he's actually going to be good at, which is computers and coding, and forget all of the sport and drama and geography and all the things that he just can't do.
Amazing.
But I'm having that challenge right now of getting him to do his homework, as I'm sure most parents are, and so he would probably say I was a tyrant.
Join the club. We're all struggling getting them to do the homework, but we get there in the end. Excellent. And how would your wife describe you?
Oh dear, that's thanks for that one, John. She will watch this, I'm sure. Of course, she would say I was wonderful, amazing.
Love it.
And she would say I was competitive.
Yeah.
I was bossy.
Yeah.
I unemotional, probably single-minded. Probably not the nicest things. I would have thought.
Sounds like an entrepreneur. I love it. That's great. All right, and look, so let's cycle back to your story. Like, where did it really all begin for you?
Okay, so if we go right back to school, I have never ever been an academic. So I had more E's and F's, I guess, on my school report than I had A's and B's.
Okay, good to know.
And I was sporty, really.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
as we'll discuss, I guess, is that I am very competitive, and
Mhm.
I competed in everything at
Wow.
sport. So at school at sports. So
Yeah.
and fortunately, I grew up on the Norfolk Broads. So
Okay.
and my father was a boat builder, so he
Wow.
built me a little dinghy, and I
Wow.
raced racing in and so
Amazing.
first 16 years of my life I was competing at really good level, national level
Wow.
in sailing.
Wow.
But
Wow. And that's not part of the elite kind of system or anything like that. That's literally
no,
just,
that's
so
that.
interesting.
I didn't come from a wealthy background, and
Yeah.
my father literally built the boat with his bare hands, and
Amazing.
we didn't even have wetsuits. So
Wow.
we'd go to an event and race, and my mum would come along with a Tesco's carrier bag, and if I fell in, then we would have to get changed into our
No
other
way.
set of clothes for the next race. Yeah,
Amazing.
so
Amazing.
it was a fantastic upbringing,
Wow.
fantastic parents, and they gave me
Amazing.
every opportunity.
Amazing. Amazing.
But
Amazing. Okay.
but so
Okay.
sport was my life. I wasn't really interested in academia,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I only got through my exams.
Yeah.
I was the first year of GCSEs. I
Yeah.
only got through my exams because my father, the tyrant, had taken over from my dad. He took my sports kit, my boat, and my tennis rackets and everything else away so that I could actually until I did
Wow.
knuckle down.
Did that help? Did it help?
Yeah, so we're doing the same with Alfie now,
Oh,
my
wow.
son.
Just repeating it over. Oh, wow. Okay, okay, that's good to know. And so then where did life take you from there?
So I was completely into sport, and I just scraped through enough kind of B and two E's, I think, in A level,
Yeah.
and it was enough at that point to get me into university.
Okay, okay.
And so I went and studied sports science
As you do, yeah.
which turned into Manchester Met University.
Yeah.
And that was where I had a real life lesson in a way, and I realised early on in that if I surrounded myself by really intelligent, clever people,
Yeah.
they kind of dragged me along with them. So I was probably relatively a low grade student, but I always got by on an effort grade.
Yeah.
And as a result, I surrounded myself with the first and second class people. They became my friends, and then I learned off them, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
So
That's really clever that you actually came up with that strategy.
yeah.
Because people who are typically competitive are really good at working well with the people that are as good as them or better than them to pull them up.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you came up with that at that age.
I guess it was just I always wanted to win or be the best, and that was the only way.
Very smart.
With not being that clever,
very
that
smart.
I could achieve it. And
Amazing.
so I stayed at uni there for 3 years, but then I graduated and stayed on actually for an extra 3 years as a part-time lecturer. So I was 21 and teaching sports science straight after working as a sports scientist for the Sports Council.
Wow.
Traveling around the world, preparing athletes for major competitions. So that was an amazing opportunity.
What a leap as well.
So
From being not the smartest in the room to like now teaching.
To teaching it,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
And I look around the room and I think, But teaching, they're working with the athletes for the Sports Council, so we'd be preparing their diets, their nutrition, and this was before sports science was really a big thing in a way. It was before lottery funding for sport even. So that was really interesting.
Did you get to see some of the big names as well?
So I worked with the England netball teams, the England cricket teams, and the sailing teams, obviously. And my specific job was working with the England lacrosse team. So I used to spend a lot of time going backwards and forwards to America with the lacrosse teams, which is an amazing opportunity.
Amazing.
You can imagine at 21, 22, 23. It was just like belonging being a student, really.
Wow. And like, what does that do to your mind at that age if you're getting to see so much of life? Like,
it was amazing. It was really, really good. It was such a great opportunity. And then in the background, I was doing a master's degree in sports science, which was the hard bit for me because that was the academic bit. And
you chose to do a master's even though it was tough.
Yeah. You have to push yourself outside that comfort zone, and so yes, I stayed on, but I kind of realised I knew that I didn't want to become a full-time lecturer at a university. That wasn't me. I'm not an academic. And I kind of grew up, I guess, at 24, 25. I suddenly became a bit more money orientated, decided I needed a mortgage and this, that and the other. So I then moved, shall we say, into the next phase of my life.
Interesting. Tell us about it.
So I then moved into selling drugs.
Really? Wow.
Well, no, not really.
I was like, I really wasn't ready for that.
Well, actually, I did move into selling drugs, but as a drug rep. so I worked for Janssen Sealag, which is part of Johnson & Johnson.
Okay,
and I used to... Your face was a picture.
I'm going to watch that back on the rewind.
Really? That's really interesting. Thanks, John. So I became a drug rep. So I literally would go around the doctor's surgery and persuade them to sell my drug over somebody else's. So I used to drive around in my company car with a boot full of KY jelly, speculums, and because I used to sell HRT patches, so all drug reps had freebies, and they were my freebies. So I was dreading a car crash and having to unload them on the side of the road.
No way to explain it. Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
So that was the start of my what I'd call a proper job.
Yeah.
And before that, it wasn't a proper job; it was just for fun.
Yeah.
And so I then moved into sales and marketing.
That's really interesting that you do say that, though. So for those first few years, you're actually just having fun.
I'm just having fun.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
That is really fantastic.
Yeah.
Because then when you're having fun in the job that you're doing, you actually just, it doesn't feel like work.
No.
You get to give your all. That's what a really big thing of mine in coaching. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thoroughly enjoy it. I've looked back at every job I've done. I've always enjoyed it.
Amazing.
And that's absolutely critical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Even with what I do now, I employ people based around, do I want to work with them rather than their skill set?
Yes.
Because you spend a long time at work.
Yeah.
What's the point in being miserable?
Absolutely.
If you don't like it, change it. If you're not happy, change it.
Fantastic.
So, so I sold pharmaceuticals, and that was the best schooling in sales ever, because you're selling an invisible, you're selling a tablet.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to pick up, show and tell and explain or anything like that. So I've just moved, just changed it from whatever it says. And in those days, the sales training was phenomenal.
Wow.
If you didn't pass that day, you got sent home.
Wow.
And especially with a large blue chip like that, it was a fantastic schooling.
Wow.
So then spent a number of years moving through the ranks in pharmaceuticals and then into medical equipment. So I moved into selling equipment for open heart surgery.
Wow.
So I'd actually be in the operating theatre. In those days, I sound really old now, but in those days, the rep would turn up with a bag of donuts and go into the operating theatre, and I would see the chest cracked open and them actually doing the heart transplant. Now, you can imagine health and safety and it just wasn't possible. It's
amazing.
So saw some amazing things there,
Amazing,
and kept climbing the ladder in sales and marketing.
Fantastic.
Within different organisations within the medical industry.
I've got this really warm feeling now. I've seen you kind of climbing up while enjoying it. It's not like you're back breaking or kind of not seeing the family or anything like that.
So it you're working for a large corporate, and at that time it's sales, and it is incredibly demanding.
Is it? Okay.
And when I moved into an international role, I was out of the country more than I was in the country. And so we would rolled out education and training as a chargeable service instead of a free of charge thing that accompanied when you got the product. We set that up, and then we'd roll it out around all the countries. So I'd go to Australia, America, and again, an amazing opportunity.
Lots of travel.
Now, post-COVID, nobody will have that opportunity that I had, because you'll do it all via the video conference, won't you?
Absolutely, because people are realising they don't need to necessarily send them. At times they will, but it's probably not the same.
So, the world has changed from that perspective, and I count myself really lucky to have experienced world travel, I guess, and not have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and so you're moving up in the ranks of sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Any preference to either one particularly?
They are in my head. I know there's always an interview question, isn't it? What's more important, sales or marketing? And in my head, they're equally important. You have to understand the marketing concepts, and you have to understand your product, and all of that kind of good stuff. But equally, you've got to be able to carry it off and close the sale. And they go hand in hand. And I think you can't be good at one if you don't know the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was the next milestone for you? What was the next sort of big life-changing moment or kind of crossroads? What was next really for you?
So as I climbed through the corporate, I realized for me that I was becoming less and less impactful in terms of outcomes on a daily basis. The harder I tried, I didn't actually earn any more money. I wasn't really directly related to the success. I was setting the strategy, and at the same time also my son was born, and I wasn't there. And so I made the decision to do something else, but it wasn't a conscious decision. It just kind of happened. So while I was in sales, I was competing, surprise, in photography. I'd always done photography as a kid all the way through as a hobby. And I had a friend that was in sales, and there was a website called DP Challenge, Digital Photography Challenge. And each week they would put out a topic. You had to take the photo in that week. You had to edit it in that week.
Wow.
And then it would go out, and people around the world would vote on it to see who had the best photo and why. And so the challenge was, I always remember, there was one, overhead power lines as an example. So I took a photo of my friend at that point, strapped to a chair with a colander on his head and jump leads wired up to the socket in the ceiling. He's going like this, and with his shirt off, and it still comes out for Will at Christmas. And that was my entry. So I always had some sort of creative idea, but I wanted to win. So I wanted to be as competitive. And so that's where photography came in, and we started to win. And then I started to slowly, without realizing, people asked me, well, can you just take the photos for? And at that point, I got a little studio, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Amazing.
But I quickly realized that there are an awful lot of really good creative photographers or videographers out there, but they don't understand typically business. So I felt that with my background of business, that actually I could market that as a service in a better way than probably most of the photographers were actually doing, even if they had good results. They couldn't sell it.
Amazing. and I'm just going to even snap back to something that you were just saying. It's amazing actually how much creativity comes out when you have that creative streak, because there's a push that comes from within to try and get the best picture, the best product, the best sales. So that's really, really interesting that's coming through for you.
I would, if you asked me, I would say I wasn't a creative person at all. But I think if you've got a goal and you want to achieve something, you find a way to achieve it, don't you? And so,
Amazing. Okay, so we've now got a studio. What's happening there? Is it just you by yourself, or are you working with other people?
So for the first, we're now coming into our 11th year of Unique Capture. So for the first 5 years, I literally worked as a one-man band. So I shot everything, delivered everything. I had an assistant, but I was working in the business rather than on the business, and loved every minute. I really, really enjoyed working with the clients and helping them go from zero to hero. And it was amazing to see, somebody arrived, they've got their little product that they developed at home or what have you, and then in 2 years' time they're rolling up in their Range Rover, and they've sold it for 10 million because they've converted their little candle business that they made at home into something that was, that's actually a really saleable, scalable business.
And you were part of that journey.
And you think you've been a part of that journey all the way through, and we see it every single day. And those are some don't make it as well, but we sit, and those are the most enjoyable customers that we work with.
Amazing.
But in terms of who we are now, so we're now a team of 10. We've got 3 studios. We're not just working on photography, we're doing videography, CGI, lots. We try and stay massively ahead of the game in terms of technology to make sure that that we don't get left behind.
Yeah, yeah. True to the name, unique capture.
Unique capture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And so we also then started a second business called originally called Amazon Photography. And then I got a lovely letter from Amazon saying that I needed to rebrand. Even so, I'd still own the domain name amazonphotography.co.uk and Amazon Photography Limited, but my pockets aren't probably deep enough to fight Amazon on that. So now we also have a dedicated service that is specifically for Amazon and e-commerce sellers.
Okay, we're going to unpack that in a little bit more.
Yeah, sure.
Just in a bit. We just want to find out a bit more about you. So tell us some of the names that you've been able to work with. Just tell us some of the variety also that you get to kind of work on.
That's absolutely one of the best things about what we do. So no 2 days are the same at Unique Capture. If just look at this week, we've been shooting goo desserts in the kitchen. I think I showed you earlier, but then in the other studio we're shooting a tiny little carabiner clip, and that goes on somebody's rucksack. And so one day we're shooting pants and toilet seats. The next day we're working with a MasterChef winner or a Bosch or an Electrolux or somebody like that. Amazing. So we've shot UFC cage side. Wow. There is just when I look at our brand board, over the 10 years, I go, oh my gosh, have we really worked with some of those brands?
I'm absolutely going to flash up that brand board as well, because there's quite a few big names on there, which are amazing.
And you don't realise that you've kind of worked with them; they just sort of happen over time. But as I said, it's the smaller businesses in a way that are almost more rewarding, because you see them go from zero to hero.
Amazing. And so, if you were to define success, maybe in two particular realms, let's say personally and then from a work perspective. Let's go work first, actually, then personally. How do you define success for you?
Success is happiness. Ultimately, it's from a personal perspective, it's about being happy. I absolutely believe that I go to work and want to enjoy myself at work. So I don't call this isn't a job. I used to say I had a proper job. Now I just have a photography business or a videography business.
Amazing.
And so I get up in the morning and I love every minute of going to work. It's not a job for me. So and that's being happy. So from a personal perspective, that's it. From a business perspective, I guess there's two things. One is I need it to be financially successful. I'm scaling and growing, and I want to continue to scale and grow and have an exit strategy at the end, just as I'm sure most business owners want to have. But I equally get so much satisfaction, and it sounds cliched, but I've got people that were working with me now that joined on 16,000, 15, 16,000, and now they're running the business for me, and you see them grow. And that's equally brilliant. And
so what would you want to say to those people who say that you can't, and you've always been speaking about it, but you can't necessarily work in something that you absolutely love all of the time?
You have to have a passion, and you can follow your passion. There are two dangers with that. Is suddenly at some point, your passion then can become a job, and then you might not. For example, I may not ever want to pick up a camera again because I've shot and shot and shot. That's not the case. So you have to be careful that if you follow your passion, you then don't lose your desire for why you wanted to do it in the first place. But I don't think for most people that happens. And having a passion absolutely gives you enthusiasm when you talk to somebody else, and people pick up on it. So as soon as I talk about the service that I deliver, hopefully you go, oh my gosh, actually he can make a difference for me, help sell more product or reduce returns because I believe in what I'm selling. If I go back to selling the pharmaceuticals, did I really believe in the HRT that I was selling? It was really difficult for a 25-year-old bloke to really believe in things aimed at 50-year-old ladies. or younger.
We have nothing against 50-year-old
no,
ladies.
Absolutely not. But I didn't have any empathy for it.
Makes sense.
So if you have a passion for it, then I think it's a lot easier for you to follow your career.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll take that on board. I think that's wisdom for people who are listening at home. And so let's talk about our typical term that we talk about, finding your mojo.
Right.
We really believe here that finding your mojo is not necessarily finding the success at the end of the journey, but really just finding that pathway towards success. Sure. When did things really start clicking in place for you on that journey towards success? Like, where did you really start thinking, like, this is the right path, I've found it, and I'm just going to keep pushing on this path?
Oh, that's a tricky one. If we're just talking about the photography to start with, the biggest change for me is when I realised that actually people didn't necessarily want Chris King to take the photos. They were actually better photographers out there than me, and videographers, and actually I could employ other people to do that. And now nothing makes me happier than when my customer goes, actually, we don't want you, Chris, we want Ellie or John or Tom or anybody else in our team. And that was one of the biggest mindset changes. Wow. In that actually I could work on the business rather than in the business to help grow it. And so for me, that was one of the biggest ones, I would say.
And roughly what year did that happen?
So that was about year 5. So the last sort of 5 years I've employed people and more people. And once I'd realised that actually other people can do things better than you, and you're much better off using your time in the skill sets that actually you're best in. Yeah,
fantastic. And that's really interesting. So where did you discover that you were actually... I know you've done the sales and the marketing. Sure. Do you feel like those were the underpinnings of you kind of pushing the business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the photography was something I enjoyed doing, but ultimately my training and background is all in strategy, development, sales, marketing, and putting a business together. Fantastic. And so ultimately, that's where I need to focus. And I got a little lost, I guess, with enjoying myself delivering the images for a while. But as I get closer and closer to retirement, not that I'll ever retire, but I need to keep pushing forwards.
Yeah, amazing. And so in terms of character, I know you've spoken a bit about that competitive nature that's in there, which I write about this all the time. I know that competition gets a bit of a bad rep, but it actually has a lot of real good applications to it. What else was kind of ticking inside you? What other character traits were kind of really helping you along in that journey?
I've always got by just on an effort grade, and I have always had to work harder or smarter than the person that I'm against or up against, because I possibly don't have some of their skill sets. Look at my sister; she's twice as clever and intelligent. She got all the brains, and I got the effort grade. So
and the sporting ability,
and the sporting ability. So I think that's critical. But for me, you've got to. Well, I see you at the gym in the morning, so I get up. My day starts at 5:10. So 5:10, 10 past 5. I wish it was 5:10. 10 past 5 in the mornings. I'm in the gym by 6, and it's about having like a plan and making the most out of every minute. You're a long time dead, so let's let's make it work.
I haven't heard that before. I love it. Okay, so who have been some of your biggest supporters? And I haven't got a stick under the
that's it.
Prodding you, but go for
it. I've had support along the way, all the while. We're a very, very small family, so I haven't got a big family of support. My mum died early, and my father is unfortunately not very mentally sound at the moment. So so I've always been self-driven. Obviously, my wife supports me, and her parents again support me massively. Wow. But I haven't had any financial support of anybody, so I had to create it for myself. So there's no big pot of gold to get me started in that from that perspective. But I always believe you get what you give. So, and you have to give first before you get back. So ultimately, if you treat people well, they tend to support you, and they tend to help. And actually, there's a lot of idiots out there, but mostly people are good.
Yeah, and I can fully agree with that. As I've been saying on my kind of social media feeds, I've had so much support from everybody, and even as we launched the podcast, it's been immense. So I know that is really helpful as you go along the journey.
Yeah.
So.
People just blow you away with their kindness, their generosity, and how they help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Chris. So where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Wow, retired hopefully. But
is that for real? Is that the real plan?
No, I mean, no. Anybody that knows me that says that isn't going to happen. So I always said I'd retire at 30, 40, I'll get to 50, and then I'll get to 60, and then 70, and I still probably won't be retired. I'm one of life's doers rather than sit back. I can't sit still for 3 minutes. So so I'll always have some crazy kind of plan. I've before Unique Capture, I've had more businesses than a little or crazy ideas, not businesses. The day my son was born, I launched council tax refunds. I read it in the paper that Martin Lewis had worked out a way in which you could claim if you were paying too much council tax. And I read it while my wife was giving birth. I went home, she was still in the hospital, and I wrote counciltaxrefunds.com and I used Martin Lewis's page and charged people 20 quid to actually just follow the process that he told me to do in the Daily Express. So,
well, you're helping people who might not have seen the article.
Yeah, I'll always have some crazy plan on the go, even when I'm supposedly retired.
Amazing. And so that is literally how your mind works, just constant ideas all the time.
Yeah, it's. I'm fortunate. I'm good at ideas. I'm not so good sometimes at carrying them out or completing them, but I love starting business business ideas.
And look, again, I'm going to tap into the coaching side here.
Yeah,
I get quite a few of my clients who say that exact thing, that they have ideas all of the time.
Sure.
And there's a bit of guilt there where they feel like they're not necessarily the finishers.
Yeah.
But for me, it's almost a set of parts to the chain and the process. And some people are the starters, some people are the engine that keep it going.
Yeah.
And some people that just finish at the end.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be the whole chain. You can be quite secure and confident in just being that starter.
You have to find and surround yourself by people that are not necessarily the same as you.
Exactly.
So if anybody's watching this podcast or listening to the podcast, I have about 1,000 domain names for businesses. QJumper.com, HouseSwapper.com. I buy the domain names and then end up doing nothing with them, unfortunately. If you need a potential business idea, there's 1,000 probably still on my domain name list.
I love it. But even the funny thing about that, even starting something and not necessarily completing it, at least you started it.
Yeah, sure.
And at least you had the boldness and the courage to start it, because the ones that you have really started that have been successful, they started from somewhere. So amazing.
You've got to have the idea, but you have got to actually carry through and complete. So Unique Capture, pack shots, yes, I am driven to completing those. The older I get, the more driven to that I am.
Amazing. And look, who knows what other ideas are going to come out of your mind, that creative mind that you have.
Don't tell my wife.
And so where do you see the business in 10 years?
Hopefully just grown and grown and grown. Hopefully it will have grown and grown. We are now, we started as just a photography studio. We are now offering so much more. The world has moved on in sales and marketing, and people need to cover all aspects of media in order to get their message across, whether it be a service or a product that they're trying to sell. We have to use video, we have to use social media, we have to use photography. I mean, we've been talking about Facebook Lives. There's just so many different avenues. We're even trialing right now augmented reality for JD Sports next week, shooting 250 pairs of trainers, but we're actually using an iPhone instead of our real cameras. Perish the thought. And if we don't move on, then we'll get left behind, and we will be the Kodak of photography and videography. So the business I see is becoming much more of a complete service from covering your marketing and your creative all the way through to delivering the end output.
Amazing. Okay, and so let's do a bit of a deeper dive into some of these things that you do in terms of the services. So walk us through just the basic kind of photography that you do. Who's a particular client that could come through? What would you do for them? And then we'll dive into some of the other products.
Okay, so if you're selling a product or service online, then obviously you need imagery to try and get that message across. People buy with their eyes, whether they're watching it on social, whether they're looking on social media or on TV or in a magazine. And basically we help provide that. So I showed you just before this started, like a carabiner clip is the tiniest little clip. And so we'll shoot, for example, a white image of that on a white background. And then we'll shoot with a model using it. We had a tent in the background in a garden. And then we shot somebody hiking with it. And then we did a video of it, of how it can be used. So we're selling that perception of how it can be used.
Absolutely.
And then lifestyle shots, and then we'll put all of the infographics around it, and then we'll design the storefront around that. So for this tiny little clip, there is so much that can be done. And that's just for, that's a one-man band selling these on Amazon. Roll back the day before, then we've got an agency in, we've got Goo Desserts, we've got a food stylist, we've got the whole kitchen being used, we've got somebody remotely viewing the images and approving them potentially, a video team in parallel filming content. I think this one was for Valentine's Day, so we're always ahead of the days that come up. And so it's as I said, no 2 days are the same.
Amazing. And tell us about the shooting with the water tank, because that always caught me.
Right. So we've got a couple of water tanks in the studio where we can drop products in.
Wow.
And so, if you've got a watch and it's waterproof, or some shower gel and you want the splash and all the fruit flying around it, and so we can shoot things like that. But then we've actually put people in. There's water tanks that are huge, and we can actually stay outside of the tank, shoot inside, and then have somebody in, or a product actually in that water. So
I'm literally going to try and get those pictures out, because they were absolutely incredible. The dresses and the people, they were fantastic.
So we can that's we do some really crazy fun shoots, which is great.
Amazing. Okay, so let's move on from the photography. So videography, give us a flavour.
So videography, everything from TV commercials all the way down to like a 15-second advert that goes onto Amazon, and everything in between. Also like events, so things like this, interviews, conferences, but mainly it's related to selling products and services.
Amazing. Okay, and then let's touch in then to the newer sort of thing. So augmented reality is something that's happening. Tell us about that.
So we're working at the moment at CGI and augmented reality. So there's basically two versions of that. One is where we will create the product from scratch. So this block doesn't exist. You haven't had it printed. I'm not going to pick it up. It's not been manufactured yet. You haven't got a sample. So you send us your line drawing. We'll create it on the computer digitally. And then you can use that in your adverts, and we can spin it. We can then even put that into room sets. If you've got the physical product, where, for example, we were shooting bedding, and we shot the bed on a couple of planks, actually, or the bedding on a couple of planks in the studio on a white background. We then cut that out and put that into a CGI room set. Because we didn't have that New York loft-style apartment available, and it wasn't cost-effective to do that. But as long as we shoot it with the same lighting, the same camera angle to go into the set, you'd never ever know. You'd never ever know.
So that's where all of your skill and that ability really comes to the
It's merging what we do traditionally with video and photography, and then bringing it up to date, shall we say, with some of the techniques and the augmented reality now. So that's one way of doing it. The next way is actually to photograph it and then bring it to life, and then you can spin it, and then you can see it, like the trainer, for example, the JD Sports, pop up on the end of your feet, on the end of your shoes.
On your feet.
On your feet. Or we shoot furniture for Dwell and for Urkel. You can imagine you want to see a sofa, you want to buy a sofa. Then what if what does that sofa look like in your lounge? And that is definitely the future. Also, from a perspective of the manufacturers, they don't want to send us 10 sofas in 10 different colours. You think of the cost involved with doing that. Actually, if we can create it digitally, and pop it in your room, then there's cost saving.
Amazing. So. And I know before the conversation we're having now, we're speaking about actually doing some of the creative conceptualizing for some of the customers as well. So tell us a bit about that.
Absolutely. So we work on two bases really. We either work with digital agencies or creative agencies, and they give us a brief of exactly what they want, and then we are their production house. So we follow a brief. My mantra, the team will always say, I say deliver on brief, deliver on time, and deliver on budget, and that's where we stand out from shall we say, a lot of the creative photographers that don't have that necessarily that business background. And if you ask my team, they'll always go on brief, on time, on budget, on brief, on time, on budget. Will you shut up? On brief? And it's absolutely critical.
Love it.
So I've forgotten what the question is now. I'm still going back to on brief, on time, on budget.
So in terms of the conceptualizing, helping kind of businesses help out, work out what they want to do.
So we either act as just a production house, or alternatively, if you come to us and say, actually, we've got this product for Valentine's Day, what would you recommend? Or we've got to go back to that Carabiner clip. How do I get that away against our competitors? How do I position it to sell? Because of our sales and marketing background, we can then research into the product, into the competitors, and then come up with the whole story.
Fantastic.
In order to convert better than anybody else. The great thing about now versus 5 years ago is data is so readily available.
Absolutely.
So if we do two pictures, we can upload the two pictures on two different, or we can even send it off to something like a service like PickFu, and they will do the market research and say this picture is going to convert better than this picture.
Unreal.
And so you've got instant data.
Unbelievable.
And that's where we win now, because our clients, for example, will test one product or one SKU with a video. They'll see the uplift in sales go through the roof, and then we know it works because they come back and order another 20 videos for all their other products.
Wow.
So
that's really next level service that you're offering.
It's not guesswork anymore.
Yeah, unreal.
Everything has to be about return on investment.
Unreal, yeah.
And so if they spend a few thousand on a video, but then it converts into £100,000 worth of uplift in sales, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, unreal.
So we're not selling a photography service or a video service anymore. We're actually just selling an increase in sales volume.
That's amazing.
Or a reduction in returns.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Okay, and so what should we be looking forward to in the future coming from you? And it might be some of the things you've already spoken about already.
Yeah.
There might be some secret things you don't want to talk about yet.
Well, we're in a privileged position in that we see the products coming through before they go to market. So, when fidget spinners came, we knew that fidget spinners or the unicorns or whatever were the next fad is coming. But in terms of technology is where it's at. We're moving to the metaverse. And so it's things like we can shoot rooms now and create them almost in virtual reality, and you can walk through those rooms.
Wow.
We can do that with the products that we talked about and augmented reality there, and it's the blend of traditional approaches of photography and videography with computer generated, and I think that really is where the future is.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Okay, and so if you were to talk to your 18-year-old self, and give that 18-year-old self some advice, what would that advice be?
Oh my gosh.
That's a big question.
It is a big question. Do you know, I'm not sure. I look back and I've enjoyed every single year and a minute of my life. So I would just say, go back and enjoy it.
Keep going.
Keep going. It's just keep going. I think it's that effort grade. This is what I'm trying to instill in my son at the moment. If the advice I'm giving him is, I don't care what you achieve in life. All I want you to do is two things for me, Alfie. One is be nice. And two is try hard. Anything else, if you be nice and you try hard, everything else will just work.
Amazing. Well, look, Chris, thank you for your time here. Basically, from what I'm picking up, there's an understanding of yourself which you've had kind of all the way through, or has been developing as you've been going through your life. So that really seems like it's helped you out a lot. And also almost knowing the value that you're bringing to the table through kind of your education and through your experience experiences. You've been bringing that to the table continuously, which is really, really amazing. And also having your own definition of success that you've been sticking to all the way along the way, which is just to have fun. It's just fantastic. So look, we really appreciate you bringing this perspective to the table.
Thanks,
guys, I'll put Chris's details into the caption in the comments so you can get hold of Chris if you need to. Is there anything else you want to just let everybody know?
No, just drop by the studio, come and have a coffee, come and have a look around. By all means.
Fantastic. Chris is based in Milton Keynes, everybody, as well. So feel free and take him up on his offer.
Take care.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Thanks, John.
All right, take care.